Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for China and Globalization, CCG Ambassadorial Lecture Series. The Center for China and Globalization is dedicated to deepening cooperation, mutual understanding, and dialogue between China and the world. And it is in this spirit today that we are pleased to invite you all to the China and the Pacific Alliance Dialogue, Regional Cooperation for the Next Decade. Welcome, all of you. A brief introduction to the Pacific Alliance. The PA is a regional trade bloc launched in 2011 that includes Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru, as well as 59 observer states. With a combined population of 230 million and a per capita GDP of $19,000, the alliance is now the 8th largest exporter in the world. Striving for economic integration with the Asia-Pacific region in an era of increasing protectionism, the bloc also concluded the FTA negotiations with Singapore in July this year. So China is a key trading partner of Latin America and the Caribbean, as China-LAC trade has also grown 26-fold in the last 2 decades, and is expected to double by 2035. We are keen to discuss today how the future of cooperation between China, the PA, and overall the LAC region will look like. So now, as the PA celebrates the 10th anniversary, let's understand what are the PA's achievements, commitment, and what is the future scope of cooperation. Now let's invite, for opening remarks, President of Center for China and Globalization and Counselor at the State Council of China, Dr. Wang Huiyao. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Loon, and Your Excellencies. Of course, Your Excellency Luis Diego Monsalve, Your Excellency José Seade, Your Excellency Luis Quesada, Your Excellency Luis Schmidt. So, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests and friends and colleagues from CCG, also from our media circle, embassy representatives, it's really a great honor for me, actually, to welcome you all on behalf of the Center for China and Globalization. And on the occasion of this 10th anniversary of Pacific Alliance. And so CCG is very pleased to co-host today's event with Pacific Alliance, represented by 4 distinguished ambassadors here in the event. And also we are featuring our Pacific Alliance ambassadors to China and from all those 4 member states, from Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Chile. So this is indeed a great opportunity to learn more about the alliance, but also explore common opportunities for China and for LAC region at large. So exchanges between our peoples have a long history, actually, dating back to the 16th century or even longer, and then the middle of Ming Dynasty, we have the silk, porcelain, and cotton. Yarn have been shipped to LAC countries like Peru and Mexico, but also in return, Latin American corn, potato, and sunflower, and also all those products has actually gained popularity in China. Today, China features as a key trading partner for Latin American and Caribbean countries, both as a source of imports and destination of exports. China's trade with LAC region has grown dramatically, actually consistently over the last 2 decades, multiplying 26-fold. Despite COVID-19 pandemic and its unfortunate impact on global commerce, trade relations between China and LAC has continued to experience positive growth. In the first half of 2021, our bilateral trade was about 200 billion, almost 203 billion, a year-on-year increase of 45.6%. So in the wake of the pandemic, investment from China has also continuously flown to Latin American and Caribbean countries. China direct investment in Latin American countries reached $10.38 billion from this January to May, a year-on-year increase of 40%. This number exhibits the great resilience and future potential of China and Latin American countries. As within the LAC region, the 4 members of the Pacific Alliance, known for their openness and free trade and investment liberalization, is actually, as the moderator has said, those 4 countries actually represents the 8th largest economy in the world. That's very impressive. If you talk about G10, here is one of them. And Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru have also emerged as the key recipient of China's FDI. In 2020, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico taking an account of about 76.5% of China's direct investment and the 9.7% employees in the same entire region. So this is really very impressive cooperation between the countries of Pacific Alliance and China. So moreover, we also have a mutual interest in promoting from inclusive and also impactful multilateralism, especially in the Pacific region. For instance, China has interested in joining the CPTPP, and we all know that from Pacific Alliance countries, we already have Mexico and Chile being the being the CPTPP members already. So this May, actually, Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi congratulated the 10th anniversary of commemoration of the Pacific Alliance. This is really significant, represents a very strong economic alliance that have gone through 10 years of its achievement. In his address, he underscored that China stands ready to deepen mutual and bilateral cooperation with Pacific Alliance and its member states, continue to cooperate with Latin America and the Caribbean countries in various fields such as combating epidemic, demonstrate the concept of a common community with a shared future in a new era featuring equality, mutual benefit, innovation, openness, and benefiting peoples. So LAC and China have been benefiting from their complementary in economic sectors. Latin American region is also an advocate and key partner in China's Belt and Road Initiative, and 19 LAC countries have signed a BRI agreement with China. The economic ties on both sides has been further strengthened under the Belt and Road framework, and BRI paves the way for greater economic growth and expanded international cooperation for the Latin American countries and also its business. During the 2005 and 2020, China has carried out 138 infrastructure projects worth 94.09 billion, as well as generated over 600 jobs in LAC countries. Out of the 4 members of the Pacific Alliance, Peru and Chile both signatory to BRI, as well as Colombia and Mexico have followed the initiative. For instance, the Bogota Metro project. Based on the common perspective of mutual respect and win-win cooperation, I believe Pacific Alliance is in alignment with the BRI will maintain stable and sustainable development. Improving the quality and infrastructure, energy and connectivity project under the BRI framework in Latin American countries is definitely good news for the region. Meanwhile, China-LAC countries are also expanding the scope of their cooperation, such as e-commerce, public health, finance, and service sector. This enhancement of our bilateral cooperation stimulates more innovation and dynamism on both sides. So I'm very, very honored and very pleased to welcome our 4 distinguished ambassadors. I'm very confident that through our close cooperation, mutual understanding, and trust, and of course China and Pacific Alliance, and also the LAC region will jointly build our common interests together, and we are really going to make a more and more important role to the prosperity and also to the cooperation with our regions and also with our countries and with the world. So with that, I look forward to hear more from our distinguished ambassadors, and really, once again, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wang. And towards win-win cooperation and various avenues of various mutual interests that PA and China share, now let's welcome our 4 ambassadors who will discuss in more detail specific aspects about the Pacific Alliance. So firstly, to talk about the Pacific Alliance and its objectives, let's warmly welcome His Excellency Luis Diego Monsalve, Ambassador of Colombia to China. Welcome.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. Distinguished Dr. Wang Weilao, President of CCG, dear Mabel Miao, Secretary General, dear Mrs. Sun Ahmed Khan, dear ambassadors, friends, and all the audience, both online and present with us today in this public lecture, South Shanghai. First of all, before I start some of my speech, I want to once again give thanks to CCG, Center for China and Globalization. When I came in 2019, March 2019, 1 or 2 months later, I visited CCG. A former colleague introduced me and he told me I should come and meet them. And this has been a very good experience. I have already attended, 6, 7, 8 events with CCG. In many of them, I've been invited to participate in panels, in discussions, and I know this is a leading think tank in China. And this is important for the people in our countries that are watching this event. This is one of the leading think tank in China focusing on globalization. And we know globalization is a force for good, which of course has to be managed, has to be channeled, but it's still a force for good. So that's something very important that CCU works on that, promotes globalization. And this is what Pacific Alliance is a group which really is focusing towards opening and being globalized to the world. So thanks again, Henry. I would say in a friendly term, we are good friends, and Mabel, thanks a lot for inviting us today. So thanks for putting this together, this event. So we have this magnificent opportunity. It is a great pleasure to be with you today to introduce with my colleagues, the ambassador from Mexico, Peru, and Chile, one of the most successful and innovative regional integration processes in Latin America and the Caribbean, the Pacific Alliance. I am speaking today as the first because we have a rotating presidency. So now this year, in 2021, it is Colombia, and then from January 1st, it will be Mexico for the next one. So from next year, for 2022, you will see Ambassador Seade chairing us and inviting us to different events. This regional integration mechanism was established in April 2021 and formally constituted on June 6, 2011, and constituted in June 6, 2012, with the signing of our framework agreement. And since then, the Pacific Alliance oversees a deep integration process which is innovative, flexible, and strongly projected to the world with clear and pragmatic goals that we will discuss ahead. We call ourselves a deep integration for prosperity. Accordingly, our main objectives are to build an area of deep integration to progressively advance towards the free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. At the same time, we are eager to promote better and inclusive growth, development, and competitiveness of the economies of its member states to achieve greater well-being for its citizens. We look forward to become a platform for economic, commercial integration and projection to the world through our 4 economies, with particular emphasis on the Asia-Pacific as one of the most important regions worldwide. Just one tip about this, we were just talking before, and regarding the 4 countries, nowadays, China is a very important partner for 4 countries. In the case of Mexico and Colombia, China is our 2nd largest partner. In the case of Peru and Chile, is the 1st trading partner. And the US is the 2nd for them, the 1st for us. So we are very integrated to the world, and of course, the 2 largest economies are either our 1st or our 2nd partners. Additionally, the Pacific Alliance agenda seeks to surpass the commercial sphere to strengthen joint and coordinated actions between the promotion agencies and cooperation entities aimed at strengthening competitiveness and innovation For example, of our small and medium enterprises. In this same direction nowadays, climate change is one of the most significant challenges for the world. Therefore, the Pacific Alliance wants to develop and promote research on this area, thus facilitating environmental development. Moreover, in terms of education, we are strengthening technical, professional, and technological education, scholarships, as well as encouraging academic and student exchanges. In a context of challenging as the COVID-19 pandemic, the Pacific Alliance managed to create a joint work plan to reduce the impact on the citizens and economies of the 4 countries. For example, we launched joint promotion activities that will impact around 2,500 companies to support economic recovery and promote e-commerce, trading services, foreign direct investment, and sustainable tourism. 2021 is an important year for us, has been an important year. It is as it marks our 10th anniversary, and I am honored that Colombia assumed the pro tempore presidency this year. After 1 decade, we are proud to highlight that the Pacific Alliance has 59 observer states worldwide, with 6 candidates for associated state and cooperation relations with regional blocs from different continents. For instance, China has played an important role as an observer. Recently, as Dr. Juan said, during the official event for the 10th anniversary, State Councilor and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi sent us a congratulatory video, and in this sense, on behalf of the Alliance, we want to express our willingness to strengthen our cooperation with China as a strategic partner and create joint strategies to foster economic growth and sustainable development. You are all welcome to learn more about us. Our doors are always open. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Monsalve. I actually would like to also introduce your achievements. Ambassador Monsalve has been the ambassador to China since 2019, March 2019, and previously, from 2000 to 2019, he was the CEO and chairman of Newsteadic and associated companies. He has also been part of various board of directors and from private and state companies to regional development foundations. So when you talk about integration and also the fact that there's immense potential, we see there's a lot of experience, and we hope to learn more from that. Thank you so much for introducing the Pacific Alliance. Next, we have the Ambassador of Mexico to China, His Excellency Jesus Seade. Firstly, I'd also like to introduce you briefly. His Excellency Jesus Seade serves as Ambassador to China since July 2021. He was appointed Ambassador of Mexico to the GATT from 1989 to 1993, and prior to that, he was the principal economist in public finance at the World Bank for 3 years. So he will talk about the importance in the world of the Pacific Alliance in terms of economic performance. So please, welcome.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Wang Huidao. It's very gracious of you to organize this fantastic event and to invite me with my other colleagues to present our views. I would like to, through you, also to thank the Center for China and Globalization, such an important think tank, which for us as ambassadors from our countries, it's a privilege to have this institution here in Beijing. In fact, I started my office with a quarantine 3 months ago, almost to the day. Mine was the quarantine, so it's been a couple of months that I have been around. And nevertheless, I already have had the opportunity to be in this place. This is the second time. Very interesting, different events. So I really would like to recommend it to everybody who is listening, and to thank you for the amazing service you bring to all of us. well known that Asia Pacific is one of the most important regions in the world in terms of population, GDP, and certainly trade. The region's human, natural, economic, financial, and commercial resources make it one of the most relevant and the most dynamic. The size of our collective economies represents close to 60% of world GDP. There are several regional agreements within such an important, large, dynamic region as is the Pacific Basin. Different associations of countries promoting cooperation, trade, and investment. These include the Pacific Basin Economic Council, PBEC, the Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, PEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, which is the umbrella of those, APEC, which brings together 21 economies and 3 countries. There is also very meaningfully the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, created in 2008. The bottom line is that the region is surrounded or composed by all the major economies in the world, and certainly its two most dynamic legs are on the Pacific side, on the Asian side, China and Asia, the most dynamic economies in the world, and across the ocean, across the pond, we have the Americas, the biggest economy in the world in the north, but then we have Latin America, which, well known as it is, it continues to be an amazing secret for Asia to continue to discover, given what it has to offer. It's a huge reservoir of growth presently and future growth, with an amazing extension, resources across the region, a large and expanding market, a large and young population, and indeed a very educated population. Fantastic for thinking, for planning, for directing, and for working. All of this gives Latin America an enormous potential as China's, one of China's prime collective partners around the world. Within it are 4 countries forming the Pacific Alliance: Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru, going alphabetically, have, as was mentioned, a combined population of 230 million people, which in China doesn't sound like a lot, but outside China is a lot, with an average per capita GDP of almost $20,000, $19,000. The region represents more than 40% of Latin America and the Caribbean in terms of GDP, accounts for almost 60% of Latin America's trade, and receives 48% of FDI into the region. And if we look specifically at the secondary and tertiary sectors along manufacturing and services, the Pacific Alliance has a combined share in Latin America's total of more than 2/3 of the total, 68% of total investment into secondary and tertiary sectors, which is where investors choose where to go. Primary sector is very important, but it's relatively more given by nature. So it is definitely a dynamic sub-region waiting for China and Asia to come in a big way. The 4 founding countries of the Pacific Alliance put together add up to the 8th largest economy in the planet and the 8th major largest exporter, with exports of over $600 billion US. It should be mentioned that the 4 Pacific Alliance countries are very strongly focused on trade and investment relations with the rest of the world. 4 well-established, very open economies. Since its creation, each of our countries has had political changes, sometimes right, sometimes left. It doesn't matter. The Pacific Alliance has been completely solid, demonstrating its maturity, moving forward regardless of politics, because we mean business. All four have separate trade agreements with the United States. Mexico in particular has secured trade agreements with more than 50 countries, and something similar can be said about each of our partner countries. All of them intricately related with countries all around the world through free trade treaties. Chile, Colombia, and Peru in particular also have free trade agreements with countries in Europe, in Asia, North America, and Latin American trading partners, as well as Mexico. And indeed, Chile and Peru have free trade agreements with China. Thus, the Pacific Alliance has the potential to leverage the members' existing trade and investment experiences and project them to the world as a conglomerate of nations with cultural, economic, political, and social affinities. There is a Chinese proverb that says, "Let us bring our heads together for the benefit of all." This regional integration alliance, the Pacific Alliance, seeks to do exactly that, to create an innovative platform for shared production and competitiveness, increase the added value and sophistication of our products and exports, and achieve and bring to our partners shared prosperity. In that way, the four countries, which together represent 72% of all mid and high-level technology exports in Latin America, work together in a coordinated manner to achieve shared goals. The Pacific Alliance is happy to open its doors for member countries to export to new markets to which they previously had limited or no access, strengthening the supply chains to become more competitive on the global stage. And we all have a particular focus on strengthening and developing links with Asia, specifically with China, with its growing domestic market and international position. The Pacific Alliance has attracted a lot of attention along the Americas and around the world. No less than 59 countries, other countries, are now observers of the Pacific Alliance. That means have established formal close links with our countries. And our sub-region is leading the change from the Americas for the creation of an increasingly integrated economic space across the Pacific. Mexico and Chile used to be very far away geographically. Now we are not. Technology ensures that we are all close together. And we share, together with Colombia and Peru, a fantastic coast all along the Pacific, facing China and facing the world. We very much look forward to tightening economic and in particular investment ties with China and with all the most dynamic economies in East and Southeast Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Seade. And now, to understand the main achievements of the Pacific Alliance during the last 10 years, let's warmly welcome His Excellency Luis Casada, Ambassador of Peru to China. And if I may briefly introduce him as well, he has been serving as Ambassador to China since 2018. And prior to this, he was the Director General for Economic Affairs from 2017 to 18. He also served as Ambassador of Peru in Australia and non-resident in New Zealand from 2011 to 2015, and he joined the Peruvian Foreign Service in 1977. The floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone. Dr. Huiya Wang, President of the Center for China and Globalization. My friend David Miao, co-founder and Secretary General of the institution. Dear ambassadors and dear friends. Just like Some minutes ago, my colleague Jesus from Mexico said, the Pacific Alliance has remained stable despite presidential elections in all 4 countries in a region where power transitions often lead to changes in economic policy. Considering that many attempts to build regional blocs in Latin America, the presence and validity of the Pacific Alliance in its 10 years is already one of our main achievements, thanks to our commitment to the principles of free trade, reaffirmed in the Lima Summit in June 2019. Our goals are pragmatic, and we all share a strong political will to advance them. The Pacific Alliance is not only a platform of commerce integration, it also develops common objectives and shares best practices in a number of areas with observers and other blocs. Now let's go straight to our achievements. In terms of trade and promotion, 92% of the products that are exchanged among the 4 countries are duty-free since 2016. We have created also a timetable for the elimination of the other 8% until 2030, and we have loosened the bloc's cumulative rules of origin. The integration of the Mexican stock exchange, which is the biggest in the alliance, into our integrating stock markets has set a limestone in the bloc's financial system. The establishment of a one-window system for foreign trade that have allowed exporters and importers to save costs and time since they can process their certificates of origin and phytosanitary electronically. The development of more than 180 activities of promotion in exports, investment, and tourism, counting on more than 3,500 shares of exporting receptive companies of the 4 countries, in icon events and generating business expectations above $1 billion. Considering the important participation of small and medium enterprises in the markets of the members of the Pacific Alliance, our bloc has established a business incubators network as a mechanism to support entrepreneurs, promoting their development in the early stages in their strengthening within the market. The Entrepreneur Capital Fund is a clear example of that, which develops local leaders' companies and transforms them into digital platforms. The Pacific Alliance digital platform is being created to strengthen the digital skills of SMEs. Regarding the movement of people, the Pacific Alliance has reached the elimination of tourist visas and short-term business visas between our 4 countries. Then, vacation and work agreements, consular cooperation, and facilitation of migratory transit. More than 3,000 beneficiaries thanks to the creation of the platform for student and academic mobility and its scholarship program, as well as the youth volunteer project. The Pacific Alliance has been aware of the trends of technology and its use to improve the competitiveness of the bloc. Therefore, the 4 countries have created the Pacific Alliance Innovation Ecosystem, which facilitates the interaction with each country's own system in order to increase the individual and joint results of members in regards to business innovation and innovative entrepreneurship. Then, the Digital Agenda Group, which aims to promote scenarios of coordination and convergence among the 4 countries in order to improve the conditions and development of business in the digital economy. The Pacific Alliance is also concerned on climate change. There will be no future if the world keeps in blind economic consumption and does not turn into a circular economy. That is the main reason why our bloc has signed an agreement for sustainable development of plastics, focusing on developing and implementing new policies to promote the comprehensive management of plastics and reduce the presence of these residues in ecosystems. We have also established the Pacific Alliance Cooperation Fund to develop and finance projects and help the reactivation of our economies in these hard times of a global health crisis. We are also working on other roadmaps, gender equality and regional digital market. Finally, the Pacific Alliance and Singapore have concluded negotiations of the Pacific Alliance-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, making Singapore the first associated states to the Pacific Alliance. We have further negotiations ongoing to be held with Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Korea, and Ecuador. The Pacific Alliance is growing, and so are our achievements. I want to thank once again the CCG for giving me the opportunity to be here again. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Now we understand more about the Pacific Alliance, economic achievements, and also, lastly, we would like to know what is the strategic vision 2030 of the Pacific Alliance. And for that, let's warmly welcome His Excellency, Ambassador Luis Schmidt, who is Ambassador of Chile to China. Ambassador Schmidt currently has been serving in China since 2018 as ambassador. Previously, he was president of the National Trade Union Federation of Fruit Producers, and also he was the at the National Society of Agriculture between 2005 to 2009. He served as the president of this society. From 2010 to 2014, he was appointed as ambassador of Chile to China as well. So let's understand Strategic Vision 2030 of the Pacific Alliance. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Juan Huillao, President of CCG, and thank you so much for invitation this important meeting. I know that the Center for China and Globalization is the most important think tank in China. Thank you for this invitation. Our colleague Luis Diego Monsalve for Colombia, Sociade for Mexico, and Luis Quesada for Peru. And our moderator, Mrs. Sum Ahmed Khan, thank you for this important meeting. Thank you, CCG, for the kind invitation to today's activity. It's a great pleasure to be here today with my colleagues of Colombia, Mexico, and Peru, who have eloquently introduced the different aspects of the Pacific Alliance. Now, last but not least, let me introduce you what is our common vision for the year 2013. Today, as we celebrate our 10th anniversary of Pacific Alliance, has consolidated itself as an innovative, flexible, and visionary regional mechanism with concrete goals consistent with the developed model and foreign policies for our four member countries. The continuing, promoting, and consolidating of this integration to generate, develop, and contribute to the fulfillment to the Sustainable Development Goals. The Pacific Alliance seeks to focus in work for four goals: more integrated, more global, more connected, and closer to the citizen. This central concept will contribute to achieve the free movement of goods, service, capital, and people in 2013. First, more integrated. The Pacific Alliance in 2013 will be the trading bloc that grows sustainable with the list of raw material, and we have more competitive, efficient, productive, and fully integrated market. We aim at having a fiscal, tax, and financial regulatory framework that favors an integrated market to support the financing of infrastructure projects responding to the natural disaster and developing an integrated electronics market. Second, more global. The Pacific Alliance aims consolidating its double dimension. On one hand, the articulation of the Pacific Alliance in the international forums such as APEC and the OECD, and with the regional blocs such as ASEAN and European Union. On another hand, reaching the proposal level of integration as a regional economy, taking in consideration the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Third, more connected. By the year 2013, our citizens and companies will be digital connected, having the better access to information and communication, which will foster relationships at all levels. The Pacific Alliance aims to becoming of a digital regional market, incorporating information and communication technologies in production process. It will aim at closing the digital gap by training for young talent, promoting the access of small and medium enterprise to the new technologies, and promoting an inclusive and agile trade. And four, close to the citizen, thanks to the fact that the Pacific Alliance will enjoy the free movement for people, we aim to providing job, academic, cultural, and business opportunity to its citizens, which help to consolidate a wider recognized identity based on the values, principles, customs, and common vision. We believe this goal will be a roadmap to strengthen our cooperation internally and externally. China is for our countries an strategic partner. In this regard, we are willing to create synergies with China that will foster a better future for our people and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Schmidt. And now we have all gained a better understanding of the Pacific Alliance, different aspects, and also we will have a panel discussion to understand the way forward. Now I would like to invite the speakers to come up in the front for a group photo before we start the panel discussion. Thank you.
It's correct. One, two, three.
All the participants, I think. Yes, have that time. Yes. Colleagues, yes.
Yes, maybe it's like this. Yes, we can also.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Y este colombiano. Embajador de Ministro Daniel.
Yes. Okay, so let's now welcome. We're going to start the panel discussion. So let's welcome His Excellency Luis Diego Monsalve, Ambassador of Colombia to China, please. His Excellency Ambassador Seade, His Excellency Ambassador Quesada, His Excellency Ambassador Schmidt, and Dr. Wang Huiyao, please. So firstly, we've heard, let's start with Dr. Wang Huiyao, President of Center for China and Globalization. A brief introduction about me: I'm Zoon Ahmed, Research Fellow at CCG. And today's panel is really going to be about getting into more depth. How can the Pacific Alliance and China cooperate more deeply? There are many multilateral mechanisms, many trade agreements, many things that both can achieve together and also support each other in. We also know that China has the Belt and Road Initiative. How can the Pacific Alliance, when we understood more about the vision, it can in many ways align with the Belt and Road vision as well, which is something that I am trying to understand. Being in China, it's an interest of mine. So I'll firstly start with Dr. Wang. We heard the ambassador's presentations, the concept, the economic achievements, and also the way forward. So what are your thoughts on the Pacific Alliance, and also more specifically vis-a-vis China?
Okay, thank you, Zoom. And also I'd like to thank 4 distinguished ambassadors from Pacific Alliance countries. And I think this event at CCG is very significant. First, for me to comprehensively understand the formation, the achievement, the progress, and also the future vision of the Pacific Alliance. And this is really for not only for the think tanks community, but also I think for the policy community to know that our 4 countries from Latin America are doing so well and so impressive. And this is really, I think that with the 10th anniversary going on, I mean, I was really deeply impressed by what has been achieved with our 4 Latin American countries. And you have this Pacific Alliance agreement, and then you already had more than 90% of tariff within the boundary are free, and then you are having 59 observers, and you're getting into a free agreement with Singapore as even as a social member, or even an agreement. I'm thinking maybe China should also have a more close relationship with Pacific Alliance, as you all do so many trade with China. So this is really impressive, but also as Ambassador Seade has mentioned as well. I mean, Mexico has been in many free trade agreement with, and Columbus, as Ambassador Monsalve just mentioned as well, has been doing so much trade with China. So I think there's so many opportunities. There's so many complementary between China and our Latin American friends. So what I would like to to further give a bit of my thought is that I think first of all this Pacific Alliance is so important. We now know well. I also highly recommend people to read the brochure, the magazine that has been prepared by our Pacific Alliance countries, which is highlights a great achievement, progress, and particularly trade with China. I see so many Chinese companies also been advertising on that for sure as well. So it's very, very impressive. I highly recommend. Second is that I think there's a huge potential. You have 59 observers, you have 4 member countries, you represent almost half of the Latin American trade and even more than that, and 200 and over 200 and almost 50 million population. It's the 8th largest economy in the world. That's so impressive. So I think this should be further promoted, further understood, and further made people aware among the business, all the policy circles in China as well. I think this is Latin American. We also felt where's the crucial field. I mean, here we are. In Chinese say you have to really get the top. Quite a few key countries. I think here we are. We have, and of course there's many other important. There are also other important Latin American countries like Brazil and many others. But I think you 4 already have reached some free trade agreement among yourself. That's very impressive. And then also you have Mexico has a USMCA. You have and then with the CPTPP, Chile is in the CPTPP. Mexico is in the CPTPP.
Also Peru.
Yeah, also Peru.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so we already have 3 of them, right? Yeah, okay. So China is now very interested in joint CPTPP now. I mean, it's being held as the higher standard of 21st century. So this is really impressive. I mean, so why we are so interested to invite our Pacific Alliance country ambassador CCG, because CCG is really be one of the advocacy for China, the joint CPTPP. We are the first think tank in China actually proposed China should join CPTPP, issued the first report after President Trump actually withdrew from TPP. So I think there's an area on that as well. And also, thirdly is the Belt and Road Initiative. China has signed with many Latin American countries. I think that is also very, very impressive as well. And so there's many opportunities can be collaborated. Finally, I'd like to say, that investment and infrastructure. So China is now doing very best now in the infrastructure area. China is now one of the leading countries in infrastructure. China has this Belt and Road Initiative, and we have, of course, U.S. President signed this 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill just recently, and European countries launched this EU gateway, 300 billion euro. So it's very impressive, but China has already done quite a long time already. So I think that for Pacific Alliance countries in the future, investment from China and infrastructure-wise, China can also deepen its cooperation with our friends from Latin American countries. So I don't want to take too much time, but what I would say is that once again, congratulate our Pacific Alliance 10 years anniversary, and really important to have this event on CCG, on the think tank level, but on policy level, so we can explore more how we can deepen the cooperation, and also, for China to really further involved in these Pacific Alliance countries. I really hope that China can do, because if Singapore is doing, many countries are doing. So also continue the trade, investment, also, collectively fighting pandemic. China is also on the vaccine production, on the public health event, mechanism, so we can collaborate. I noticed that our Pacific Alliance 4 countries, you already have internally many measures already, and you have offices in different parts of the world. So let's know more about our great Pacific Alliance, and let's see how we can collaborate closely for China and the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wang. And actually just taking a part of what Dr. Wang mentioned forward, for Ambassador Monsalve, I have 2 questions. Firstly, what was the reason? Because it's impressive, over 10 years, these 4 countries have maintained the alliance, have been building this partnership stronger, and also 59 countries as observers. That speaks volumes about the perceptions and also the impact of the Pacific Alliance. So if you could talk a bit about what was the starting point, what keeps them together, and also, secondly, the Belt and Road Initiative, China. How do you see China and the Pacific Alliance cooperating in the future?
Okay, thank you very much. First, Dr. Wang for his good wishes for Pacific Alliance, and I think that the 4 of us, something very impressive, the 4 of us, we have all repeated some key words which may help you understand why the Pacific Alliance is where it is right now. One of them is pragmatism. This is a very pragmatic alliance in which no matter which kind of political situation we have in 4 countries, we keep promoting and keep working with the Pacific Alliance as a bloc. So there is an understanding in our countries, regardless of which side or political parties are in power in our countries, that this is something very important, that we have commonalities, that we share values, and that we share a way of looking abroad, looking forward, and also for the openness of our economies. I mean, we are establishing common standards, and as you said, we are establishing kind of a common market with lower barriers, but not only like an internal development, but looking to the world. So this is since the beginning. You may find some other trade blocs in different regions or even within Latin America that they have been working for a longer period and they have tried to adjust themselves, but they kind of are more protective. So they are trying to establish a more protective environment within them and with difficulties toward the world. In our case, since the beginning, we are really pragmatic, looking outside, looking for new partners, and looking to cooperate and to establish new relations, economic relations. I would, this kind of details, technical details, or how to work, I will leave them to my friend Jesus, who is a very well-known practitioner and has worked in many of these multinational institutions. But just in practical terms, I mean, Pacific Alliance, as he also said, we are all face the Pacific, we all face Asia, and we think, of course, that Asia and this region, Asia Pacific, is the most important region right now and the near future. And for China, we see a lot of complementarities. In China, for Latin America and for Pacific Alliance, it has become very important in terms of trade. Many of us, we are increasing, and I would say Chile and Peru, they have made a wonderful job in growing in agriculture, agribusiness, looking towards China. And we also are looking for in any of our countries like Mexico, Colombia, or Peru, Chile, we're also promoting the establishing of Chinese companies in our countries to sell to the whole region. So if these companies have a common market, like this Pacific Alliance, with the same standards, it will be much easier to achieve a bigger market, more than 200 million people. And finally, I think also in terms of investment, as you say, we are all countries, developing countries, which still need a lot of investment in transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure, telecommunications, and those are areas in which China has excelled in the last 20, 30 years. So we see nowadays, we see many, as you saw in the magazine, you see many of the big Chinese companies in these areas which are participating in our markets. They are participating in energy, participating in mining, participating in road building, in ports, in many other areas. So, and this is something that for sure will increase in the future. I mean, it's already in a very good position, but the only thing we see in the future is more and more. So there is a very positive way. I think there will be much more integration, much more trade and investment between China and Pacific Alliance countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So for Ambassador Seade, let's have three sub-questions really. First of all, Ambassador Monsalve mentioned that you can explain some technical details, how this works. So briefly, if you could, that would be very interesting for us. And also, one of the questions is these kind of alliances or blocs, you know, they tend to get mixed up. How is the Pacific Alliance different from, you would say, EU or ASEAN, if there is something that makes it unique? Not that it has to be entirely unique, it's unique because of the countries and the region and the opportunities, but still if there's a way you could distinguish and more specifically tell us what is the approach really? And lastly, what is the role of observer states? If
Let me come to your questions as a
yes.
byproduct. Thank you very much. Let me say a few words complementary to what my friend from Colombia said, and try to locate the Pacific Alliance in kind of a broader context and also larger context over time. We are in China, and China likes seeing things with a long vision. And so let me bring a little bit of the long vision. We are all countries belonging to Latin America. Latin America, if you look at it, is in many ways the big region of the world that has more to offer as we look at the future. It has a gigantic territory, you know, the distance from northwest of Mexico to the southern tip of Chile and Argentina is enormous, with huge range of developments, diverse population, the richest biodiversity in the world, richest in terms of resources, for copper and oil and all kinds of things. It has a relatively high level of income and potential for gigantic growth in the future. It has rich and growing economies. It has a very young population. I don't know about the populations in the countries of my friends, but it might be similar. The average age in Mexico is 30, something like that. So it's a very young population, nothing like what you have anywhere in Europe or indeed in Asia or in North America. Maybe Africa is similar, but we have a very high level of educational development, labor proficiency, good workers, and so on. So in terms of looking for a good investment opportunity, just looking at it analytically, Latin America has to be a central focus for China over the next, let's say, 50 years and beyond. Now, within Latin America, we are not one country. It's not like China, which is a continent-sized country. We are many countries, sovereign, and with our own differences. But we have a lot of similarity. We have a main common language throughout 90% of Latin America. Then there is Brazil with Portuguese, which is a very close language. So we have a shared history, shared culture. We are a common territory. So it's very easy to do business with all of us. And within that huge territory, there are 4 countries, all of them facing China across the sea. On a clear day, you can almost see them on the other side of the big river called Pacifico. We are 4 countries with very open policies, with a very friendly attitude towards China, with a great facility. It's not that we are exceptional. We are just easygoing, our countries, to relate with each other and to do business with each other. So I don't think you need a big treaty, China and our countries or anything like that. You just need to have confidence to do business. We are 4 business-oriented countries wanting to do more business with China, eager to receive Chinese investment and business. Now, where has China been investing? Has invested a lot in Chile, in Peru, in Mexico, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Africa, in Australia. A lot of it has been in resources, minerals and things. And that's very important. And that will continue to be very important. All our countries have a lot of that. Some of them have more. Chile is a very world power on some of these issues. And that's very good. That's one area where China has invested. Beyond that, it has invested mostly in developed countries, in final markets, to tap the big markets of Europe and the United States. It's beginning to invest in, for example, in manufacturers in my country. We have a few thousands of Chinese firms, 2,300 or so Chinese firms, many of them producing washing machines and televisions and other things for the Mexican market. But what you have not started seeing is what you do have in the case of Western companies, Volkswagen or Toyota or Ericsson, who produce in Brazil or produce in Peru or produce in Mexico for export. That's really the name of the game tomorrow. That has not happened in a big way in our countries with China. So I see a future of closer partnership, us getting into combined value chains with China, that something is produced in China and then it's produced in our countries and then exported. That's where I see the most potential, not this year and next year, but beyond.
So we're talking Vision 2030 and beyond. Also, yes.
2023 and beyond.
Thank you. That was really...
No need to wait.
No need to, now. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ambassador. So I will take one of the questions that I asked you to Ambassador Quesada also, that if you could explain a bit why these four countries. I mean, I'm also interested in understanding these are four countries. Yes, a lot in common: pragmatism, strong partnerships, strong incentives. But also, is there room for what is the future in terms of membership of the Pacific Alliance? If this is something you would like to talk about, what do member states do? What is their role? Specifically, what has China's role been? Thank you.
Thank you. The fact that there is a strong interest in the Pacific Alliance is due to that we are very active in the international community. In the case of Chile, Peru, and Mexico, for instance, we are members of APEC and we are signatories of the CPTPP. In the case of Colombia, Mexico, and Chile, they are important members of the OECD. Colombia, Peru are also members of the community and other integration process. So this, I think, is the response to why we have 59 observers. Now, this is only one category to access to the process of the Pacific Alliance. The observer has some rights as well. They can participate in all of our meetings, especially ministerial and presidential. So they are open to attend, and they also have a voice. So that is very important, why the observers can feel very hopeful. I would say that in the case of China, it is true that we four members would like to see a more active role of China. China is very active in other Latin American fora, like the CELAC, but we would need China to be more present in the Pacific Alliance, because in terms of trade and investment, we are more like-minded countries. There are many things that we can do with China. The next category in the Pacific Alliance is the associate member, like in the case of Singapore. And for that, they would have to have agreements, trade agreements with a very high quality with all of us. And of course, the next and the top category is full member. And for that, a country would need to have free trade agreements, formal trade agreements with all of us. This is the case of Ecuador, and we, of course, all of us welcome this new entry of the new Ecuadorian government. They want to also open up their trade policy, and they are in the process of that. Another country that has expressed, the region that has expressed interest is Uruguay. However, Uruguay has to obey the rules of Mercosur, which is more like a customs union. So they have some rigidity in that. So we hope that they can loosen that, so the family of the Pacific Alliance can grow, well, first with these two economies, then maybe broader if other countries in the region also open up their minds for a more open and stable financial trade and policies. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let's call in Ambassador Schmidt. As the ambassador of Chile to China, and also we see that the Pacific Alliance is very important. Is very important for all four members. China, the relationship between China and the Pacific Alliance, especially. And when you talked about the Vision 2030. I'm interested, I think it's an interesting question to pose. How has this vision changed over time? So 10 years ago, when the Pacific Alliance formed, what was, we understand what was the main idea? Pragmatism at its core, and really more benefit, more opportunities to the countries and their people. So how has the vision changed? If that's something you could briefly talk about. And also secondly, as a signatory to the Belt and Road, Chile is already a signatory. So how do you see China's engagement through the BRI with the PA from your own perspective?
Okay, thank you for the question. The Pacific Alliance has evolved with the time, become more ambitious in the scope. At the beginning, our main goal was to achieve open markets for the goods and services through the elimination of tariffs. Once we achieve the first goal, the bloc start to work towards achievement, the more integration and work an important joint initiative, such as elimination in the short term of the visas, the creation of social observatory, the creation of joint diplomatic mission, etc., etc. Today, the Pacific Alliance taking into account every aspect of the contribute to the development of our country. We have expected our objective and have included new areas for work. For example, education, culture, tourism, gender, the small and medium enterprise, innovation, among others. In conclusion, the Pacific Alliance has broadened its scope for the trade, not only working towards a post-pandemic economic recovery, but we are also working intensively towards sustainable development in our country. For the second question about the Belt and Road initiative, I want to say my country watched with a great interest in the important achievement of the Belt and Road initiative. Chile was one of the first countries to support this relevant initiative in 2017, when the former President Michelle Bachelet visited China to attend the first Belt and Road Forum for the International Cooperation, and we met with the President Xi Jinping. In this occasion, the President Bachelet declared that the breadth of the One Belt and Road, the high-level participation in its strategic dimension, highlight his capacity to become the biggest economic cooperation project in place today. Those words became a reality today. Belt and Road Initiative is undoubtedly one of the most important economic cooperation initiatives in the world today. Further, the President Piñera and the President Xi signed an agreement for the cooperation with the Belt and Road Initiative in November 2018. According, the President Piñera was invited to participate in the second Belt and Road Forum for the International Cooperation held in 2019. As this important political history for my country's leader demonstrates that Chile considers that the Belt and Road Initiative plays an important role in our bilateral relation. Likewise, cooperation in this multilateral initiative makes us an important contribution to a collaborative and develop with the essential of post-pandemic recovery. Since Chile formally joined the Belt and Road Initiative, we have been working on the implementation of the initiative this past year. Regarding the Pacific Alliance, there are not formal discussions to initiative work with the Belt and Road Initiative. Only 2 Pacific Alliance countries, as also members of the Belt and Road Initiative, Chile and Peru. Possible cooperation in the future between the Pacific Alliance and Belt and Road Initiative need to be an internally discussion as a bloc in order to reach consensus.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I think because we have about 30 minutes left, we want to bring in some Q&A as well. But let's do a final round with all of our panelists that basically trade openness, trade liberalization. This is the way forward. We see that, especially at CCG, like Dr. Wang mentioned, we have been supporting China's membership to the CPTPP and overall economic, deeper integration, deeper economic engagement. And the Pacific Alliance can play a key role. We have 2 members of the CPTPP here, 3 members, sorry. And there's immense potential. So, and also like you mentioned, it seems that the Belt and Road, the Pacific Alliance, these ideas are quite deeply aligned. So let's start with Dr. Wang Huiyao. What is the potential in this area? What can be done to further improve the level of engagement?
Thank you. I think that the discussion by 4 Excellency and ambassadors are very impressive. You gave a very unique angle of the collaboration between China and Pacific Alliance. But also you each highlighted the importance of the trade, investment, and also you are regional FTA and multilateral system. You are one most active countries I can see from Pacific, from Latin American countries. You are in the APEC. You are in the USMCA. You are in of the OECD. It's very impressive. And then you are in this Pacific Alliance itself. It's already a regional multilateral system, regional trading system. So what I'm thinking now, you are also in the CPTPP now, 3 of you. So probably, I think this round we can talk about, how we can further strengthen. For example, China can, maybe through those multilateral system, with Pacific Alliance system, CPTPP, further, strengthen the relations with the Pacific Alliance countries. So that would be really great. I mean, also giving you each unique perspective, like Colombia has coffee is famous, Mexico, each country has its unique character, so maybe you can highlight a bit on that as well. So I think that would be great. We really, as I think I still believe that trade, investment, economic activities are the backbone of a future society, prosperity, and peace will only be guaranteed if we strengthen this kind of economic alliance. We're not busy with security alliance. Well, let's busy with economic. Economic alliance is the security alliance. I think that's really important, and we can work on that.
Thank you. And actually, even given current deglobalization tendencies and trends, it's good to see that the Pacific Alliance is really pro, like Dr. Wang said, economies, stronger economies, more opportunities, and your mandate is about also empowering small and medium enterprises, getting into technology, education, and overall aspects of improved society, and that's something deeply impressive for me as well. So, Ambassador Monsalve, what are your thoughts? How to move forward? How can it be done more effective?
Okay, thank you very much. I think, first of all, I think the practical things and practical measures matter. So what we are doing right now is, of course, talking and working with the Pacific Alliance, but also each member country towards China, for example. We are definitely here as ambassadors and with all our teams promoting more exchanges and promoting more closeness with China, presenting our markets. I think I have to say that we have good examples of doing a very good job from Chile or Peru for a long time. They have been doing for more than 20, 30 years, expanding their market, their presence here in China, in the market. In the case of Colombia, I would say we are probably within the group the latest country to come to realize the big importance and the big opportunities that there are in China. So, and we are working behind, but we are looking forward. So, if, for example, in our case, in terms of trade, we are still, China stills export to Colombia 2.5 to 3 times what we sell to China. Things have been improving lately. We are a medium-sized exporter of oil, and China has been a very good market. But also, we are also increasing and expanding our agricultural products that can come to China. Of course, these are things that take time. And my professor, Schmidt, can tell me about that. He's been working for more than 20 years, 30 years here in this market, so you have to go step by step. So that is something that we are doing. And also, in terms of investment, again, Colombia is the late comer. Until 3 or 4 years ago, we had relatively low investment from Chinese company in Colombia. But now, the last couple of years, things have exploded. I mean, we have 2 or 3 very large projects, like the Bogota Metro subway, which is more than almost $5 to $6 billion investment, and this was a project that was awarded to a Chinese company through a bidding process according to Colombian laws of competition. And from that, there are 3 or 4 more projects that have been also already been awarded. And now, what I see, good for us, is that the new projects that are coming into market, many Chinese companies are coming and looking at us and saying, yes, we want to participate. And we share, this is something we share. We are countries that have rules of game similar, very stable rules of the game in order to participate in processes. People know that we have stable economies, that we are open economies. So in that way, there is a field which is leveled in a good way for the 4 countries, and this helps us, including this is something very important in terms of investment. When we present to the Chinese companies, there is so many opportunities, and of course also the Chinese companies are so big and so capable to go there that we are not competing. We are working together. I mean, there are 2, 3, 4, 10 projects which Chinese companies can do it at the same time in Latin America, and especially the Pacific Alliance. Once again, we have the same frame of doing things. So I think there's a very important and big future in these areas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador. So Ambassador Seade, Mexico in itself, I mean, member of PPTPP, and also your personal experience, you've been part of the USMCA negotiations, and also as part of, and with your own economic experience as a negotiator on many fronts. How do you see this cooperation moving forward? What are your thoughts? How can from China as well, how can things be done better to improve trade liberalization and the trends that we foresee?
I speak for my country, but I really feel that the story is very similar for both countries. I think the political relations are excellent, and they can always develop more, we can always do more things, but they are excellent. I don't think the deficit is in any way at that level. Nevertheless, Colombia, Mexico, and I believe the 4 countries import from China a lot more than we export to China. Maybe Chile is more balanced. Okay, because of the resources and so on, maybe. But China needs to feel, because you see, China, political relations are defined on a government-to-government basis, but trade relations are defined mostly on a business-to-business basis. Okay, China is a very cohesive country, very strong unity within the country, but nevertheless, businessmen do whatever they want. They invest where they want to, or they don't invest. They import what they want. And in that regard, I feel that there's a deficit of familiarity with our countries. If you go to the supermarket and there's a product from one of our countries, and the same product for the same price from, I don't know, Canada or some country in Europe, the average Chinese consumer is likely to pick up the Canadian or European goods because they say, Mexico, what is that? It's not so well known, or Colombia, or whatever, okay? There's a gap. Maybe think tanks are in a more informed position, but there's a lack of familiarity. We need to develop familiarity, to develop the brand. The brand is called Latin America, and within Latin America, the brand is called Pacific Alliance. It's called Chile, Peru, Colombia, Mexico. We need to do more on that. And that is not a question only of an advertising campaign, not at all. It's a question of developing the right means to enhance this familiarity. Governments, business associations, not just talking to each other, but bringing trade delegations. Or of course, the COVID has been a big problem. But bringing more contact between business delegations, doing more to enhance tourism, because tourism is much more than a means to export your hotel and restaurant services. Tourism is a way for the Chinese tourists to come and discover Chile, and discover Mexico, Peru, and Colombia. And once they discover them, they begin to like your products more. Mexico, for example, has a booming trade relation with China. It's very, very, very significant, but 8 times more exports from China than imports from Mexico. 8 times more. Exports from Mexico are huge, among the biggest in Latin America, because the trade has developed, but far from balanced. So I really think that the attention should be on developing business, not so much agreements and frameworks. That's important, that's useful, but I would do more to develop confidence, to develop the brand, and to develop the markets. One way to do that is for China to invest in our countries for re-export, including export back to China. It's very common for Korean and Japanese companies to produce some things in Mexico to send back to their countries. With China, it's beginning to happen. It's beginning to happen, but it is more the exception. It has happened less. China's investment is more typically to tap the target market rather than to integrate in the production chain. We need to develop that more.
There's so many questions I want to ask in response, but thank you so much, because many countries are facing this kind of deficit, and there are ways to address it, and really in the long haul what we're looking at is genuine interest in each other. The brand is the people, the culture, and from that the business follows really. So Ambassador Casada, if you can specifically talk about COVID-19, because Ambassador Seade just mentioned it a bit, and how in this stage, when business delegations are not coming and going, tourism has been affected, how to continue building the brand and deepening between China and Pacific Alliance. Yeah.
Yes, the first thing that we have to do is, despite the fact that, of course, there is a severe health crisis, but we need to relax on measures. That is what we have done in our region. Business travel and tourist travel are now on, and of course, it depends on the requisites of the countries. Some people ask for a test, some asks for vaccines. It's now, I think, the general route was for vaccines. Now, it has affected our business presence in China. Of course, we hope that this will be relaxed soon. But for instance, there are events that have been very important for us, like the CIIE in Shanghai. And it was a pity that we all, even though we participated very actively with virtual stands, yes, but it was very difficult to bring our businessmen. We hope that we can make some progress in that, as we have done among our countries in the region. We have facilitated quite a lot his business visit. Of course, it would be very mean for me not to recognize the big help that we have received from China during this health crisis, by the supply of vaccines and the supply of medical equipment during this process. But our business sector hopes to come to China soon.
Hopefully soon. We're all looking forward to that, more normalization. The last question for Ambassador Schmidt. Actually, it may seem a bit on a tangent, but it is something that's very important at CCG as well. We have the initiator, the founder of the Global Young Leaders Dialogue, Dr. Mabel Miao here, and it's an interest of mine as well, and many people in the audience. How are youth being engaged? How can young people be engaged in a more effective way? Obviously, we talk economy, business, culture, all of that at the end is about being able to maximize on the demographic, the young people, which were previously mentioned as well. So if you can talk a bit about, at the PA, is there a specific focus on youth? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we think that the young people is our future. For the same reason, is the priority for the Pacific Alliance, and we have a lot of programs to the young people. The first one was a platform for student and academic exchange, with the objective of investing in formation of human capital through the several scholarships and important universities from the Pacific Alliance countries. More than 3,000 scholarships have been granted through this program, benefiting not only students but also educators and investigators. Another important program is the work and holiday agreement in place to encourage young people for the Pacific Alliance countries to travel and work while at the same time getting familiar with the local culture of the Pacific Alliance countries. And the third one, very important, is the voluntary program in place for the young people to engage in social work with the community. Well, this initiative shows the deep commitment for the Pacific Alliance towards integrating young people to the bloc and getting them to engage the different aspects of our common vision for providing jobs, academic, cultural and business opportunity to our cities and our young people. For this reason, we think in the Pacific Alliance, the future for our country is the young generation.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Schmidt. And with that, let's open the floor for questions. If you have questions, please raise your hand. And I will request, please introduce briefly and as quickly as possible would be perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I'm a reporter from China Radio International. And my question is, this marks the 20th anniversary of China's membership in WTO. And the first question is, how has this entry into WTO facilitating China's trade relations with the Pacific Alliance as well as PA countries individually? And second, in which areas do you excellencies see that lies the big potential for future cooperation and mutual understanding between China and the PA countries? Thanks.
Well, I think WTO was a major, fundamental defining moment for China. Since the economic opening up reforms introduced by Premier Deng Xiaoping in December 1978, it's the second big moment for China. And it's not only in relation to the Pacific Alliance, it's in relation to the world and to China itself internally. Even Chinese investors began to be more confident in China's potential to trade and to invest and to grow. China's regulatory frameworks developed from that moment in the trade areas, but even less related areas like financial, for example. China's financial system began to develop in a major way then. So it was the launching pad for China's connection with the world. It was a very happy moment for China and for relations with our countries. Things began to take off gradually in the first decade of this century, I think more or less for all of us. And in the second decade, 10, 15 years ago, things began to develop very, very fast. So China is now, and has for a long time been, an intensely trade-oriented economy. The blockages to trade, I think, are no longer very significant in terms of traditional trade liberalization. Reducing tariffs is not the main issue almost with any country. It's more the development of trade, the development of trust, and related to trust are regulatory relations. The Pacific Alliance holds systematically very close talks with observer countries, for example, to improve regulatory relations and so on. But I think in general, one can say that the basis for effective, efficient, and open and vigorously growing trade between China and our countries, the basis is there. The main need is promotion in the broadest sense, not in the sense of advertising, but in the sense of generating familiarity, promoting the brands, and working together. Where traditional trade promotion is no more important than cultural links and tourism links and friendship in both directions. And that's very much something that keeps all four of us very busy to develop the friendship links with China. That's as important as anything else.
And any next question? Do we have? Yes, please, Mr. Tan.
Just to add something.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. Something. You also asked what would be the evolution of our relation between economic relation between Latin America, Pacific Alliance countries and China, and I think it has been evolving. So of course, at the beginning, 2 or 3 decades before, when China started to produce, to be a big producer, the big factory of the world, we have been receiving many of the products that China makes, like electric appliances, like nowadays cars, mobile phones, and before that clothing, garments, many things. And that has been going on. I mean, it's still part of a big chunk of the imports we receive from China. And in the case of exports, of course, most of our countries, we started exporting commodities, I mean, minerals, and then of course, during the last 20, 30 years, agricultural products have been very important. And I think the evolution in the future is to be more sophisticated. That's something that Ambassador Seade already said. And that sophistication, I think, once there is more connection between both regions, then Chinese companies could establish in any of our countries and start also producing there for the regional market. So that's the way that things should move forward in the future. And also, once again, not only invest in some new things. We see that in many of our countries, the Chinese, now with the COVID situation, many pharmaceutical Chinese companies are looking to our countries to establish operation there. Now we see that with the green energy, there are many opportunities to invest in new energy developments and new energy projects in our region. That's also that some Chinese companies are doing. So I think this becoming more sophisticated, more deep integration in areas with more value added. That's very important.
Yes, please.
If they are, because I think it's a very interesting question, so I will be very brief. You mentioned the accession of China to the WTO. I think that was a milestone in the history of world trade. And it was also the recognition of China from a big majority of countries as a market economy. And it made it possible also that we enhance our trade with China, and some of us through free trade agreements. Now, of course, there are still some challenges in our trade with China. I think it needs to be included more of goods with a value added. I think that most of our trade to China is commodities, and we received products from China with very high technology, and we would like to have more non-traditional products exported to China, as we do with the United States, for instance, despite the fact that in the case of Chile and Peru, the United States has diminished its role in our bilateral trade. And then also we need to have better market access with China. You also mentioned which areas of cooperation you would like to see. I would like to mention science, technology, and innovation, in which China is really one of the leaders in the world. Thank you.
Let's go to the audience, if any. Okay, so Mr. Tan, please.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos días por todos. I'm Han Haoxuan, Senior Counselor of CCD, also founder of Finance International. My first question is for my friend, Luis, Ambassador Colombia.
Yeah, Luis is here.
Yeah, first of all, you.
Thank you.
As I know, you were a successful businessman before you were the ambassador. So I'm also businessman. So now I myself and as a Chinese businessman want to know how can we begin the business or trade. Frankly speaking, we know each other for two years. So next step, what's we do? Frankly speaking, we have done business with Cuba for 30 years. Yeah, with Cuba, we are frank. Okay, drink rum. Okay, first drink rum. Second, business. So what do we do? The first question on you.
Thank you very much. I guess in my case, I suppose also for Luis Schmidt, who also comes from business background, probably that was one of the reasons that my government, my president, asked me to come here to China. But I think this is a matter of, I would say this is a matter of example of practice. I always tell the people at the embassy and at our promotion agencies that we have to achieve the first goals. I mean, we have to get some good successes and good examples in order for the people to understand and to really realize that it is possible to expand business and investment and trade relations with China. As I told you, Colombia is among the four of us, I would say probably the late comer in order to understand how this market is so big and so important. But we are catching up, we're trying to catch up. They are ahead of us, we're catching up. And in this catching up, it is very important that the things start to happen. For us, 2 years ago, once again, it was really very important. I was really glad here that in this process of the bidding process for Bogota Metro, which is the largest project in Colombia for the next 5 or 6 years, first, the Chinese companies were there, they participated, and they have learned how to participate in this kind of process in Colombia and Latin America. Now they are doing more and more. Well, they understand that they have to follow the rules and they have to really hire very good lawyers, for example, and then do the right things to participate, and they won. So this winning, I mean, the first example of very large project in Colombia, which for many Chinese companies up until now was like one country which was not so close, really opened the doors. So in this case, things are already happening a lot. Something else, we are, as you know, we are biggest one with our largest agricultural export products, coffee. And with coffee, we are well known around the world. But still, China is, compared to some other countries, still a tiny market. But it's increasing every year, double digit, 20, 40 last year. This year is going to be almost 100% increase compared to last year. So these things happen when people start to understand and to feel confident. So that's a slow process. I mean, you would like to be faster, but no, it's like that. You have to get confidence, you have people to understand, to see the product, to taste it, and then it keeps going. So and I think that's something we have to do. Of course, the COVID situation has been a little bit difficult because it's very difficult to bring people. But as my colleague Luis Quesada say, we really hope that sooner than later the Chinese borders will be open in a safe way, There will be new ways of coming, and in that way we can have our producer and exporters visit China. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We have one question from the back, yes, please.
Thanks for sharing, for the respectful ambassador. I'm Lucy Wang, and my company is metal and mining import and export company. There are a lot of friends and customers in 4 countries. I know your 4 countries have the similar culture and personality with China. You are so kind. And my question is to 4 of you, and which one thing could you point you feel difficulty when you deal with China? This we are interested. Maybe in the future we want to improve your feeling or your perspective. Thank you.
So, which one thing is the most difficult, the challenge dealing with China for each one of you, so that we can improve things? Thank you for the question. Very interesting question. So we are also very short on time. So maybe if one by one you could just say a word or a sentence, just a crux of what you think the first thing comes.
I will steal my friend Jesus' word. I think it's familiarity. I mean, we need to work on people to. We are very far away. We are probably the farthest region towards China. So in order to come here, we have to take, from Mexico, it's possible one flight, very long flight. From any other of our countries, we have to take at least 2 planes, 20 hours flying. So it's not easy. So nowadays, I would say nowadays there is a short-term, I hope very short-term difficulty, which is definitely in order to achieve closeness, we need people-to-people exchange. And not having this people-to-people exchange because of this COVID situation makes things harder.
I can only agree with that, and the people-to-people exchange really means having this awareness of the need to get closer to a region at all levels, that country, national level authorities and provincial level and city level, to establish more cooperation, to import more. I really believe that China doesn't import more because of market choices. It's not any allergy, any rejection of importing more. But China tends to have a big surplus with many countries. In some cases, countries where you import a lot of natural resources, that's not the case. But for most of the countries, that is the case. And having a more balanced relationship improves even the politics, the perception among the population. You know, in my country, many people, small businessmen and so on, think China is a problem because China exports a lot and doesn't import enough. They see that as something bad. It's not anything that anybody is doing in China intentionally, but it's something that we can together correct. I am convinced it's in the interest of China, and it's certainly in our interest. So to work together towards a more business-to-business, people-to-people interaction and contacts, and what my colleague said, Ambassador Quesada, Peru, movements of people itself, internships and student exchanges. More people from China to come and study in our countries, for example. They will discover an amazing region with a very rich culture, but one that is not sufficiently known now.
Your question straightly was, what is the most difficult thing for an embassy in its work with China, right? So I mentioned on my comment before that one of the challenges was market access, and this is the most difficult point. Specifically with themes that have to do with phytosanitary regulations, the access of products, and the fact that we need to improve our communication, our connection with the Chinese agencies in charge of that. So I would ask for more flexibility and more dialogue to solve some of the problems that we have in our market access in China. Thank you.
In our case, depends what type of trade you are talking. In the case of minerals, probably it's some commodity. We don't need some special logistic for arrival to China. But when I'm talking about food, we are a lot of restriction. Phytosanitary agreement, as said my colleague for Peru, is one of them. But another topic more important than this one. In our case, we have a lot of phytosanitary agreement with Chile and China. For this reason, probably we don't have problem in that sense. But they need to promote this product in China. China is not a small country, it's a continent. It's very difficult to achieve the different provinces that the consumer can understand how is the specific characteristic for the food. Today, the Chinese people is very informed about the procedure of producing these products. They need products very healthy that make good to the health. For this reason, we need to implement not only the logistics for arrival very far from my country to China, and we need to implement the information to the consumer in a big country that accept our product. For the commodity as a mineral, copper, lithium, iron, we don't have problem. The problem is another topics. One of them is the food, another problem with the service, and to give. In our case, we need foreign investment, and we need to promote our countries in China that the Chinese company go to invest in our country. This is a more difficult problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ambassadors. We have to conclude now. We have many questions, but unfortunately, maybe we can stay in contact later. I'll just quickly say that a lot of regions in the world are looking to find a way to come together with their neighbors, find common ground. Even coming together is such a challenge, but the Pacific Alliance not only came together, they also, you have delivered for 10 years and you're looking forward, and the world is noticing. So that is truly an accomplishment. I think it's an example for many regions in the world to follow, and we all hope that in the future, China and the Pacific Alliance can further promote trade liberalism, more trade, more openness, improvement. So with that, we conclude the session. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, no, but we conclude this and then we invite Dr. Mabel Miao. Yes, so yes. Thank you, Dr. Wang, Ambassador Monsalve, Ambassador Seade, Ambassador Casada, and Ambassador Schmidt. Thank you so much. Please. Now, yes.
Thank you very much.
We have to change the setting. I'm so sorry. Okay, please, let's welcome warmly Secretary General Secretary, Ambassador of Colombia, Ambassador Monsalve, please. And Dr. Mabel Miao, co-founder and Secretary General of Center for China and Globalization, for concluding remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much once again, Mabel, for your kindness. Dr. Wang, I think this has been a very informative event. You were able to see the four of us talk about our similarities, our goals. As you may understand, the Pacific Alliance is a project in development. This is our first 10 years. We are looking now for the next 10 years and the following 10 years and 10 years more. I think this is a long-term project. As you saw, all of you saw, I would like to remind you a few words, pragmatic and openness, the pragmatism and the openness of this process has given us the opportunity to remain in time, even with different perspectives or political sides in our countries. There is a common understanding that this is a very positive project for our region, that together we can achieve many things. We are now, as Ambassador Quesada told, we are having partners, potential partners like Singapore, which is getting closer. We have Ecuador in the process of getting full membership in the near future, if all things are completed accordingly. We have many more countries trying to be more observers. So this is, I think this is an exemplary process. Of course, there are always there could be some mistakes, or there could be some things that haven't achieved what we thought we would achieve as soon as possible, but we are working on that. So this is a work in progress once again. And with China specifically, we think there are a lot of opportunities, and I repeat what the four of us, we have said. I think you may say that we didn't agree on this, but the language was the same, and the way to express ourselves, and the way to say that these four countries are working together to have a single entity that is looking forward to the Pacific. And with China, we share many common projects and common ideas. So this is all, I think it's all for good. Once again, thank you very much to CCG. This is, I think, the right forum, the right place to be, to show this kind of processes. Hopefully in the future we will have more cooperation. We have many more events. We have this Young Leaders event project, which I attended last year. It's impressive. We saw people from many regions, including Colombian people also, and Latin American people participating. And this is the way to get closer, to bring young people to understand each other, to have relations with China, with Latin America. So thanks a lot, Mabel, thanks a lot, Dr. Wang, and looking forward to keep cooperating.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thanks Ambassador's brief. You did a great brief and substantial summary, actually. Firstly, I would like to send the congratulations on the 10 years anniversary of Pacific Alliance. Just now we mentioned Pacific Alliance a lot, and that is a very important platform for the free trade and for globalization. People know CCG, we promote globalization, that is our value. Free trade is a crucial factor of globalization, even the engine and the most important fundamental factor of globalization. So I think Pacific Alliance is a very key player on globalization and free trade for the global market. Colombia is a pro-temporal presence of Pacific Alliance this year. Thank you, Your Excellency. Ambassador myself is an old friend of CCG, and we all know that he has been committed to expand the cooperation of the bloc with China. As Ambassador and myself mentioned, Pacific Alliance is a deep integration for prosperity, a platform for strengthening economic, commercial, education, and cultural ties. Nowadays, the bloc has 59 observer states worldwide with 6 candidates for associate state. China, as an observer state and one of the main trading partners of 4 countries, we are seeking win-win cooperation and sustainable development together with the Pacific Alliance. Ambassador Seade underscored the importance of Pacific Alliance as a bloc given its economic performance. The alliance represents 41% of the GDP of Latin America and the Caribbean, accounts for 59% of the total trade in this region. It not only benefits the inter-regional trade and the investment, but also has enormous potential for the rest of the world, especially towards Asia Pacific and China. I remember Ambassador Quesada addressed the alliance bloc provides a business incubator network for small and medium companies engaging in its market. It's a mechanism to support entrepreneurs, promoting its development in early stages, which is suitable for strengthening small and medium enterprises within the market. We have a representative, not just only one. Actually, the lady just raised question. We have few representatives from the business community today here. I believe we have more potential business opportunity together with 4 countries. Ambassador Schmidt represented a strategic vision 2013 of the Pacific Alliance, more integrated, more global, more connected, and closer to the citizens. It's quite impressive. The bloc is an innovative, flexible, and visionary regional mechanism with concrete goals consistent with the development model and the foreign policy of the 4 member countries. The Pacific Alliance makes inter-regional people mobility easier, not only to the business community, I believe, but also for the people-to-people and the culture exchanges. China, as a strategic partner of 4 countries, hopes to promote the people-to-people exchange between China and the Pacific Alliance, and has been working on that. For instance, as the founder of the CCG Global Young Leader Program, it's GYLD we mentioned, like the Ambassador Monsalve, Your Excellency, participated in our initiative. It's quite impressive. You delivered a speech about young people and the leadership, how to empower young people, which the GYLD was officially launched last December. GYLD is aiming at enhancing the communication and exchange among young achievers from different countries with different culture and secretary professional backgrounds. With this in mind, in 1 year, GYLD has become an active and dynamic community with over 100 young people from more than 60 countries. Today, Zoon is the moderator, is one of a distinguished member of GYLD. We could see the posters of the 4 countries at the front of the CCG venue. You can see those posters, beautiful views from 4 countries. You 4 countries with great nature scenery and ancient civilization. Due to the pandemic, there are some obstacles for the cross-border travel. Just the ambassadors mentioned that is one of the biggest challenges for our bilateral and multilateral relation. But I believe in the future, we can travel to those 4 charming countries and experience their culture and civilization in person soon. I think a lot of Chinese travelers, tourists would like to visit your countries. I just visited Mexico, but I hope in the future I can visit the rest of the 3 countries. This great destination for Chinese tourism. Even though we have limited on-site seats today, as the venue is limited, but just now I checked, there are more 8 platforms for social media in CCG. Totally, there are more than 100,000 audiences domestically and globally to watch our today's event. We appreciate for Ambassador Louis de Monsalve, Ambassador Jose Seade, Ambassador Louis Quesada, Ambassador Louis Schmidt, and all our distinguished guests and media friends coming to today's event. Especially, I would like to say thank you to our CCG colleagues and the colleagues from 4 embassies of 4 countries in China. Without your help and assistance, we couldn't have today's event. Thank you, all of you, for your great participation. We would like to promote the cooperation and the potential market in China and the world and free market for the world for globalization. We believe globalization will continue strongly. Thank you.